You sit down for your first meal in the Middle Ages, expecting something rustic, hearty, maybe even charming. After all, the movies always show peasants tearing into warm loaves and steaming bowls of stew. Instead, you're handed a slab of black, heavy bread that feels like it could double as a weapon. When you bite into it, your teeth meet something gritty. Congratulations, that's dirt. Maybe a little ground-up straw, possibly a beetle leg. It's hard to tell. Your ale isn't much better. It's cloudy, sour, and warm because nobody wastes firewood cooling drinks. There's a thick layer of yeast sediment at the bottom. Drink too deeply, and it goes straight into your mouth. Your porridge is a thin, sad mixture of water and whatever grain fragments survived the rats. It tastes like smoke because everything here tastes like smoke. And this is breakfast. This is what keeps medieval peasants alive. Barely. There's no salt, no butter, no sweetness, no freshness. Just cold calories, and not enough of them. If this already feels bleak, don't worry. Medieval bread hasn't even revealed its real horrors yet. You picture medieval bread as warm, fluffy, golden, pulled fresh from a stone oven. Forget it. You're eating rye, the cheapest grain, and it's nothing like the bread you know. This loaf is dense enough to bruise you if someone threw it. In fact, some medieval laws banned using bread as a blunt weapon, because people actually did. Most loaves aren't truly baked through. The middle stays damp and clumpy, which is perfect for one thing: mold. Delicious, colorful, quietly toxic mold. And if the rye was harvested in a wet season, which happened often, then congratulations. You're ingesting ergot, the fungal nightmare responsible for hallucinations, convulsions, and the occasional accusation of demonic possession. Millers weren't removing impurities. They were adding whatever made the flour stretch further. Weed seeds, husks, sand, sometimes insects. If a mouse died in the grain bin, the miller wasn't about to lose profit. So when you bite into medieval bread and wonder why it tastes like soil, smoke, and sorrow, well, that's because it's exactly what it is. But bread is only the beginning. Wait until we get to the protein situation. Here's a fun fact. If you lived in the Middle Ages, chances are you ate more insects than protein, and not by choice. Grain storage was the perfect ecosystem for beetles, mites, moth larvae, and worms. Once they got in, they never left, and neither did you. When the miller ground the grain, he ground everything. Dead insects, living insects, eggs, droppings, the works. If you found wriggling larvae in your porridge, that wasn't a sign the food had gone bad. It was a sign the food was, ironically, pretty fresh. People didn't throw food away. Ever. A wormy loaf was just extra meat. A bowl of crawling porridge was stirred a little more vigorously. You simply closed your eyes and powered through. And before you gag, remember, this isn't even the worst part. Parasites weren't just in the food. They were on you, constantly. Fleas, lice, intestinal worms. Half the time, you weren't sure who was eating whom. If your stomach is turning already, brace yourself. Now we get to the hot meals. You finally get something hot. A soup. A stew. Something comforting, right? Not quite. Medieval soup is mostly water. The flavor is also water. Maybe a turnip if you're lucky. Maybe a carrot and maybe yesterday's leftover porridge rehydrated into a gray, lumpy sludge. There are no spices, no herbs, no onions unless it's summer and someone didn't eat them all yet. Everything tastes like smoke because the pot hangs over an open fire in a closed hut with no chimney. The walls are stained black, the ceiling drips soot, and your soup absorbs every bit of it. The pot itself? Never washed properly. If you think modern cast iron develops seasoning, just wait until you see a medieval cauldron. It's more like archaeological sediment. Scraping it clean would be considered wasteful and dangerous because the pot might fall apart. So no, this soup won't warm your soul. It barely warms your fingers. And you'll be hungry again in an hour. But hey, at least there's meat in the stew. Right? Right. If you're a peasant, meat is basically a myth. You'll see chickens, pigs, goats, even cattle walking around. But they're not food. They're assets, tools, investments. Killing an animal for dinner is like burning your only winter coat because you got cold. The meat you do get is usually salted pork from last autumn. Unfortunately, medieval salt is expensive, so the curing process is, let's say, optimistic. The end result is a tough, sour, slightly questionable slab that smells like it's already halfway back to nature. Sometimes peasants get bones. Just bones. You boil them until any remaining flavor or fat dissolves into the pot. And then you keep going until the bones themselves soften. Congratulations. You've invented medieval bone tea. It's not tasty, but it's warm. Actual fresh meat? That's for lords, nobles, and feasts. When you smell roasting meat drifting from the manor kitchen, that's not dinner. That's torture. And yet compared to dairy, meat almost looks safe. Every once in a while, the universe throws peasants a bone, sometimes literally. Festival days, harvest feasts, and weddings bring something miraculous. Real food, fresh bread, better ale, maybe even a slice of roasted meat. For a moment, life doesn't feel like slow-motion starvation. Families save scraps for months just to make a holiday meal special. If you're lucky, there might be pies filled with vegetables, grains, or even minced meat. Herbs appear. Spices? Rarely. But maybe someone brought pepper from the market and everyone treats it like treasure. But don't get too comfortable. These feasts last a day or two at most. Then it's right back to the daily grind. Gritty bread, wormy grain, sour ale, and watery stew. Holidays aren't normal. They're an exception. A brief, shining hallucination in a life of culinary misery. And if you thought milk and cheese might help fill the gaps, prepare to be disappointed. Milk sounds wholesome, right? Pure. Nourishing. Fresh. Not in the Middle Ages. Milk spoils within hours, especially in summer. People drank it only if they had no choice, and they usually regretted it. Cheese was safer, but not the kind you're imagining. Forget creamy brie or soft cheddar. Medieval cheese was rock hard, aggressively salty, and aged into something you could use as armor. People grated it into soups not for flavor, but for protein, because chewing it was a dental emergency waiting to happen. Butter? Almost non-existent. Making butter meant having spare cream, and peasants never had spare anything. If butter appeared on your table, someone was either very lucky or very connected. Worst of all, dairy carried bacteria modern immune systems simply aren't trained for. Stomach infections, cramps, fevers, all common. So if you see a medieval peasant with a block of cheese, don't get excited. It's basically edible stone. You can't drink water. That's rule number 1. Unless you like parasites, dead animals upstream, and every disease your village has to offer. So what does everyone drink instead? Ale. Weak, sour, cloudy ale. This isn't the crisp beer you know. It's liquid bread with the personality of a damp cellar. Children drink it too because it's the safest liquid available, which tells you a lot about the water situation. Wine exists, but unless you're a noble or live near a monastery, it's thin, acidic, and often watered down. Medieval people weren't swirling glasses and discussing notes of oak. They were just hoping today's batch wouldn't make them sick. There's also a delicacy called posset, hot milk mixed with ale or wine until it curdles. Yes, curdles. Medieval people drank that voluntarily. Thirsty yet? No? Good. Because we still haven't reached dessert. Forget cakes, pastries, candy. Those are centuries away for ordinary people. Sugar is so rare, it might as well be black market treasure. If you get your hands on a pinch, you guard it like gold. Most desserts are functional. Dried fruit, nuts, maybe a bit of honey if the bees felt generous that year. Honey is expensive, difficult to harvest, and often filled with bits of wax and the occasional bee part. It's still a luxury. Fruit exists, but only in season. Apples are common, pears less so, and berries are a rare treat that disappear quickly. If you want something sweet in winter, too bad. So yes, medieval dessert is less about joy and more about calories. Something to keep you alive, not something to make you smile. And now that you're thoroughly unsatisfied, let's look at where peasants got their food in the first place. Imagine a medieval market. Now, remove the color, hygiene, and abundance. What's left is your shopping experience. Stalls are small, dark, and surrounded by mud. Flies swarm everywhere. Rats, too. Meat hangs in the open, exposed to sun, rain, dogs, and anyone passing by with sticky fingers. Sellers shout over each other, but not in a fun, vibrant way. More in a, please buy this before it rots completely way. Prices are high because transportation is dangerous, and spoilage is constant. If a farmer's cart hits a patch of mud and flips, that's the entire village's vegetables gone. Lucky you. Most people can't afford market food regularly. When they do, they pick through piles of wilted greens, bruised roots, sour ale, and bread baked days ago. And if you think your modern stomach could handle any of this, let's talk reality. Let's be honest. You wouldn't last a day on medieval food. Your gut isn't ready. Your immune system isn't ready. Your expectations definitely aren't ready. Everything you've eaten so far, the mold, the parasites, the raw smoke residue, the sour drinks, the contaminated water, the bacteria party happening in every bowl, would hit you like a medieval battering ram. You'd be doubled over by sunset. Medieval people survived this diet because they lived with it from birth. Their bodies adapted. Yours? Yours panics when you eat street food in another city. And don't fool yourself. Eating organic won't save you. Medieval food wasn't organic. It was chaotic. But before you swear off history forever, there's one more thing to understand. The real horror wasn't the ingredients. It was the cooking process. So what have we learned? Medieval food wasn't romantic. It wasn't hearty. It definitely wasn't delicious. It was survival, a daily negotiation between hunger, illness, and whatever questionable ingredients made it to your table. But somehow, people lived. They worked. They raised families. They endured this diet for generations. And when you look at your own kitchen, clean, bright, stocked with fresh food, medieval life starts to feel like a completely different universe. But here's the twist. The food itself was only half the nightmare. Because cooking it? That's where things get truly horrifying. Next time, how medieval people actually cooked. You won't believe this. Get ready. The kitchens were worse than the meals.